My name is Åsa Orre, and I am Marketing Manager at KRAV. And this session here today is held to give you a brief overview on what is new in the standard from 2026. This will be made by my colleague later on. And first, I would like to start to share with you some market updates from the Swedish market. So here we can see some data that Sweden are actually top 5 in the world in consumption of organic foods. And part of this is due to the fact that we have a very high organic share within the public procurement. I think about 34% of all food served in schools and hospitals in Sweden are organic. And that is helping us to have a fixed place in this ranking. KRAV label products are on the market. I would like to show here the top selling categories for the KRAV label products on the market. And as you can see, there is a lot of dairy and meat categories at the top. And this type of production has been in the KRAV standard for a long time, from almost the very beginning. And it also is very important categories for the Swedish agriculture. And I can see that these categories may not be so much of a relevance for US importing companies or selling to Sweden, but they are actually rely on the import or bringing in product from other origins in order to have a product development in this. For example, yogurt with a tropical fruit taste or similar types of products, also in the ice cream category. So it's very important for us to have also this import and bringing products for these categories. And now I have a few slides that is from a consumer insight report that KRAV made in November last year. And you can see that KRAV has a really strong awareness. It's 99%. The year before, 2024, it actually dropped to 98%. We don't know why, but we are happy to see that it's now back on 99%, which is the higher. And I think you cannot also go with 100%. It's almost impossible. So this is a really good awareness for KRAV in Sweden. We also measured the pricing power, which is a measurement on to what extent the consumers find the KRAV label worth paying a little extra for. And as shown in this diagram, you can see that this has made a huge increase last year. We can see the same change for fair trade and also the label from Sweden. And I think this might be explained by the fact that there were some financial reliefs for the Swedish households during last year, or at least there were promises that they will come. And this made the Swedish consumers feel they have the ability and can pay a little extra, and they are willing to do that for the KRAV label. And we also measured the credibility and for the different brands. And we are very proud that KRAV ranks at the top here. Many Swedish consumers trust KRAV label and rely on this label to make better choices when buying foods. And this slide is just to show you that we have a quite wide range of different products and categories. And the label is represented in almost every food category on the Swedish market. This is a huge strength for us, and it is also a key issue for us to keep it this way. Meaning that the brought-in products and the imported products with the KRAV label are of significant importance for us. And I will also just briefly take to starting with the meaning of this meeting, the new standard for 2026, and some of the reasons for revising the standards. And it's been mainly simplified to make it easier to use for those KRAV-certified companies. We also want to clarify things to show how to fulfill some of the standards, but also what is the purpose of the different rules. We want to remove unnecessary barriers, to take away those rules or standards that had limited or no added value. It could be that we have actually other regulations that has now the same standard as KRAV, and there we have chosen to take away these standards. And last but not least, of course, we want to preserve the sustainability benefits, to continue moving forward and stay at the forefront on those prioritized areas for us. And the new standard for 2026, we have a few chapters that has been revised. It is the general standards, which has the basic rules for every KRAV-certified company. We have what they call labeling and packaging. We have the wild harvest, working conditions. We'll also have some parts of the animal husbandry. We have for the fishery, the food processing, and the slaughter. So these are the different chapters that has been revised. And I also, before I will leave to Åsa to take you further deeper into these new standards, I just want to share that when these new standards from KRAV were released during last fall, the issue was covered by national media, and especially highlighting the fact that KRAV is prohibiting the fast-growing chicken breeds, for example, but also changing in feed for chickens, pigs, and also fish to make more sustainable products. And that is really good news that actually the national news thought the new KRAV standard were of that importance. So, but now I will ask my colleague Åsa to take you through all the new standards for 2026.
Yes, thank you, Åsa. I will try to share the presentation instead of Åsa, so I'll just have to wait a few seconds before I start. But my name is also Åsa, so that's very simple to remember. And I work as an expert here at KRAV. And my focus is working conditions, food processing, and imports and bringing in. And I will take you through the changes in the KRAV standards that are relevant for you. So I won't go into changes in animal husbandry or fisheries and so on. So I will focus on what is relevant for you listening today. I will start off with the changes that KRAV has made in the structure of the KRAV standards. One change is that we have merged several different chapters. Previously, KRAV's general standards, the standard that apply to all KRAV-certified operators, were in four different chapters, 1, 2, 3, and 20. Now we have gathered them into one chapter, and that is called A1 General Standards. We also have new standards called Labeling and Packaging, and that is in a separate chapter called Y1 Labeling and Packaging. I will talk more about this later on. I would just like to mention that the reason that this chapter is not part of the general standards is that not every KRAV-certified operator labels and packages products. The largest structural change is at a rule level, and we have worked to make the standard more user-friendly. And I have taken an example from the chapter about food processing, and the standard, the rule is about how much organic and KRAV-certified ingredients a KRAV-certified multi-ingredient must contain. And I will not go into the rule itself. I just want to describe the change in the structure in our updated standards. So at the top, the rule is described, the regulatory text, and underneath the regulatory text, you can see when audited, and after when audited, it states what you must be able to show when your auditor comes to the annual audit. And after the regulatory text and the section about when audited, there are two types of headlines. And I have put a ring around two different icons. The first one, it looks like, I think the correct name in English is gavel. I'm not really sure. But after that headline, it's the supplementary regulatory text. And the other icon, it looks like a hand. After that headline, this is not regulatory text. It's only support or guidance that you can use to understand more. And all the updated standard is structured this way. And we hope that this will make it easier to use the standard by changing the standards and the criteria this way. Now I will move on and describe the most important changes in KRAV's general standards. And the general standards cover many different areas and topics. For example, they describe which operations that must be KRAV certified. They also include basic requirements about inspections, how they are carried out and how often. They also describe non-compliances, how they are handled, but also include traceability and mass balance and cleaning. Other parts in the general standards include KRAV's added values, such as working conditions, environment, and climate. A new feature from this year is that we have added 3 new types of production. And by types of production, we mean the scope for which an operator is certified. A type of production might be crop production, animal husbandry, restaurants, and so on. And these 3 that is on this page are the 3 new ones. So the first one I have already mentioned, and that is called labeling and packaging. And labeling and packaging, this type of production is mandatory for all operators that label or package KRAV certified products. The only example of when you package, for example, big sacks, that is excluded. Then you don't need this type of production. The second new type of production is optional, working conditions. And I will return to this in the end of our presentation. The third new type of production is called preparation and storage. And this type of production is for operations certified only for KRAV's general standard. And one example is for when you storage grain, for example. You don't need to worry about getting non-compliances for having the wrong type of production. In the introduction, this introduction of the new types of production will be made gradually during 2026. So when you have your KRAV audit this year, your auditor will inform you, and you will get the correct type of production on your new certificate. Before I go ahead, I would like to describe more about the type of production called preparation and storage, and what differs when you compare it to food processing, because I think these two types of production is relevant for you. By preparation, we mean handling unprocessed products without changing the original product. So it might be grain storage, as I mentioned before, but it could also be meat cutting or freezing vegetables or milling flour. Food processing, by that we mean producing products using methods that significantly change the original product. So example of that might be multi-ingredient products, products with additives, or meat in modified atmosphere. So if you are unsure of what applies to your operation, you can contact us, and of course your certification body can help you as well. Before we go ahead, I just want to summarize what different types of production that is relevant for you. And as I just mentioned, I think you either need preparation and storage or food processing. I think most of you have food processing today, but depending on what kind of production you have, you might change to preparation and storage. But you also need imports and bringing in. The name imports and bringing in might sound a bit contradictory, but it's from a Swedish perspective. So you also need that type of production. And if you label or package product, KRAV-certified products, you also need labeling and packaging. And the general standards, as we have mentioned, is mandatory for all KRAV-certified operators. Now I will go ahead and describe the changes in the general standards, and I will start off with what has been updated for operators outside of EU and EEA, and I think several of you operate outside of EU and EEA, so that's is very important for you to hear and learn more about. Last year, in the KRAV standards for 2024-25, we had a section called 310, and that section was about what was applicable for operator outside of EU and EEA, and that section has been removed in this version of KRAV's updated standards. And that means that all criteria in the general standards apply also for operators outside of EU and EEA. The only exception is section 1.7 about working conditions. So instead of 1.7, working conditions, operators outside of EU and EEA comply with section 16.4. So that hasn't changed. It's the same as before. But other things apply for you from now on, and this is just a summary of the larger changes. So KRAV standards regarding environmental responsibility and resource efficiency also applies for operators outside of EU and EEA. So you have to have a systematic environmental management. You also have to ensure that your activity generates as little waste as possible, and that you reuse and recycle when it's possible. You also have to work to reduce energy, and if you have staff using vehicles a lot, you need to train them regarding fuel efficient driving. And you also need to use only renewable electricity, 100%. And this is a slide summarizing the other updates. So the changes from the previous standards to the standards 2026. So this applies for operators in Sweden as well as operators outside of Sweden. GMO, it's still prohibited to use GMO, of course. But the change that we have made is that the requirement to analyze organic products for GMO is taken away. But for conventional raw material that is of high risk and listed in KRAV's risk list, you still need to analyze those for GMO. Another update is that we have removed the criteria regarding no use of nanomaterials on surfaces, but we still have the criteria on nanomaterials in packaging material. Another update is that we have harmonized regarding cleaning and disinfections with the EU regulation for organic production. So that is perhaps much easier today. We are considering to prohibit the use of pest control products containing this is called anticoagulanter in Swedish. I'm really lousy at pronouncing it in English, but it's a substance that you use to control rodents, and we are considering to prohibit it in the future, and the decision will be made during 2026. And of course, you will get further information about this later on. Another update is that the criteria remains that you have to purchase electricity that comes from 100% renewable energy sources, but the update is that it's now permitted to purchase guarantees of origin that correspond to the electricity consumption for the operator. But the guarantees of origin must come from the electricity market where the production takes place. A quite big update is that we have removed the requirement regarding energy audits. So that is quite big change for us. Yes. I'm moving on to the type of production, the new type of production called labeling and packaging. And this is mandatory for all KRAV-certified operators that label or package KRAV-certified products. It's not a new standard. It's existing one that is moved to a new chapter. However, we have made 2 clarifications in this chapter, and I will just go through those because I think it's relevant for you. And they are about the criteria about phasing out harmful substances and materials. So here is one of the standards in labeling and packaging about phasing out harmful substances and materials. And the first clarification that we have done is about who may sign the self-declaration required for documentation of sin substances and the documentation of BPA and PVC. We have previously received feedback that it was unclear who could sign this documentation. So that's why we have made this clarification in the standards from 2026. So now the standard states that when audited, you must show documentation of your mapping of sin substances. Your mapping must include documentation signed by the manufacturer. See clarification below on who can sign. And then what's important to know is that depending on the size of the KRAV-certified operator, who can sign the self-declaration differs. So if the KRAV-certified operator is a so-called micro enterprise, there's a definition in our standard also what a micro enterprise is. So that's really easy to know. But if the KRAV-certified operator is a micro enterprise, The one that can sign the self-declaration is either the manufacturer of the various materials included in the packaging, or the manufacturer of the finished packaging, or the wholesaler of the supplier of packaging material. But if the KRAV-certified operator is a small, medium, and large enterprise, it's either the manufacturer of the various materials included in the packaging, or the manufacturer of the finished packaging product that can sign the self-declaration. But as you can see on the image, what I have marked in green, there's a transition period. So during 2026, the self-declaration can also be signed by the wholesaler or the supplier of the packaging material. The second clarification concerns which document that must be signed, and I read it earlier, but I just want to say it once again. You can see it in pink here, because we have received feedback on this as well, and we decided to make a clarification. So our previous standard stated that only the self-declaration that KRAV has can be used, but now we have added the self-declaration or a signed declaration containing the same information. So you don't have to use the self-declaration from our webpage. You can use another document that contains the same information. So what about food processing and the chapter about food processing? What kind of updates have been made here? As you can see here, you have the recent standards from 2024-25 on top of the page, and then the new standards at the bottom. And as you can see, there aren't a lot of changes in the structure. And there are not a lot of changes in the standards as well, but there are a few small changes that I would like to mention. And as I told you before, we have rewritten the standard to make them easier to understand, so you know what you should show during the inspection, the audit, and so on. But the biggest change here in this chapter is that all criteria in KRAV's food processing standards are harmonized with the EU regulation for organic production. So this means that the standards on carriers and solvents are the same as the EU regulation for organic production. Another change is that we have removed Appendix 2. Appendix 2 contained a list of permitted additives, but since we have the same as the EU organic production regulation, we think it's better to refer to look in the regulation instead of having an own appendix. So we have removed that. There are products that is KRAV certified but not organic, for example, fish and wild-caught fish and also seafood, and the additives that are allowed for those products is written directly in the standard, so that's the exception. Another change is that we have removed the standard 941 because it is covered by other criteria in the KRAV standards. And I just want to mention briefly a few words about working conditions, since this is one of KRAV's added values. And I mentioned in the beginning that we have a new type of production called working conditions optional. And this type of production contains an extended standards on working conditions. It's about work environment, labor law, and housing. And this type of production is mandatory for operations that pick wild berries and mushrooms and collect plants in the forest. But other operators can choose this option. For example, if you have a customer that requires extended audit for working conditions. But KRAV retains the basic standard of working conditions that exist today in our general standards, and this will continue to apply until January 2027, and then a new basic standards on working condition will come. Yes, it's your turn again, Åsa.
Thank you, Åsa. This is quite funny with the name. And I just want to end this presentation with just briefly mention that we are just now doing the review of the chapter or the area of import and bringing in products, which I think is of very much relevance for all of you. And this is kind of recently started, and we will continue working on this area during all of this year and next year, and this standard will actually be ready at 2028. But during this job, we will send out some referrals and questionnaires, and I just want to ask you to see that if you get these, that you actually take some time to respond to these questionnaires or to referrals, or if you have other ideas about this chapter of the import and the bringing in products that you want to share with us, if you have some things that you think is a problem or some things that you think should be included in the standard, just send us an email or ask for a meeting. We could have a brief, short Teams meeting to discuss these questions, because it's of great importance for us to have as much information about the actual what is working or not working for US operators throughout the world. So that was actually what I wanted to say about this review. And of course, you will be informed about the changes, and if there will be large changes, of course there might be some time to be able to adapt to those as well. And yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.